Good morning. It's Wednesday, the 15th of July. You're watching Euronews, and this is Europe Today. Welcome to the program. I'm Stefan Grobe. Coming up, reshuffle in Kyiv. Lawmakers in Ukraine are getting ready to vote on another government this week after the president dismissed his prime minister in a move he said would bring fresh thinking, but critics warned could stoke disorder at a key point in the war. In a shock announcement, Volodymyr Zelensky had said he would replace Yulia Sviridenko after she had only served a year in office, prompting speculation over who would get the top job at a time when Kyiv is facing intensified attacks. Reversal in the Gulf. US President Trump has backed down on a proposal he made just the day before to charge a 20% toll on shipping using the Strait of Hormuz. Trump's initial argument was that the US should be compensated for the role it plays in protecting freedom of navigation. It was never clear how Trump's proposed toll would work or be enforced. The US president doubled down, though, on his threat to reimpose a blockade on Iran's ports. A sharp diplomatic rift has opened between Brussels and the Turkish Cypriot leadership following the European Commission's decision to appoint a new special representative for Cyprus. The Turkish Cypriots characterized the appointment of EU Commission Vice President Raffaele Fitto as a unilateral overreach designed to influence the community ahead of upcoming informal peace talks. We'll speak to a minister of the Republic of Cyprus. And Spain booked their ticket for the World Cup final on Sunday, awaiting Argentina or England. The Spanish left the experts, who had mostly bet on France, speechless. Who expected La Roja to be that strong? Well, certainly not the French. We'll have more at the end of the show. But first to Ukraine. After just 1 year in office, Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko is out as Parliament backed President Zelensky's call for a political reset, triggering a full cabinet reshuffle at a critical stage of the war. The move raises fresh questions over Kyiv's strategy, governance, and the country's reform agenda as it battles Russia and pursues EU membership. Our correspondent Sasha Vakulina joins us now with the latest. Good morning, Sasha.
Morning.
So, Sasha, the Ukrainian parliament backed Volodymyr Zelensky here on this matter. Tell us about the backstory. Why is this happening now?
Look, Ukraine cannot hold elections because of Russia's full-scale invasion, because of the martial law. So this sort of a reshuffle is the only way to introduce certain changes. This is not the first time it happens since the beginning of the full-scale invasion in February 2022. And the previous one was, of course, last summer. Now, the big questions here are two key positions specifically. First of all, of course, who will replace Yulia Sviridenko? And it's not confirmed yet, but widely expected to be the CEO of Ukraine energy company Naftogaz, Serhiy Koretsky. Now, his appointment would be interesting. It also reflects a lot Kyiv's strategy and the focus on two key things. First of which is the protection of and energy resilience for the country, given Russia's strategy of deliberately knocking it out. And the second key position is the defense minister. And this is where things are a bit more tricky, because Mikhailo Fedorov, he's been in the position only for 6 months, and he's really widely respected among the military, among the defense sector, and the civil society. So the question is whether he is going to be replaced or he's going to keep his position as a defense minister, also at a time when Ukraine has intensified its long and mid-range strikes against Russian forces, and specifically in Crimea.
And Sasha, I want to talk about the military situation against, the backdrop against which all this is unfolding. The month of June was among the deadliest among the civil population since basically the beginning of the war, for a lack of air defense. Now, how can Ukraine strengthen that air defense?
Indeed, and this is where Ukraine needs the help and the support of the partners on numerous aspects. Now, confirmed by the UN, at least 293 civilians were killed in the month of June. This is the highest since April 2022, Stefan, since the very first weeks and months of Russia's full-scale invasion. Now, the reason for it is, of course, because Moscow is indeed on purpose exploiting Ukraine's shortage of anti-ballistic defense, but also in doing so, Russia is targeting specifically densely populated urban areas. Now, these death toll does not include anything regarding the frontline situation. This is why Ukraine is insisting on better and faster supplies of air defense for the ballistic missiles, but also on that license that Trump promised sort of to give to Ukraine and to be able to produce the interceptors in Ukraine.
All right, Sasha Vakulina, as ever, thank you very much. We stay in Ukraine, in the capital Kyiv, where Ursula von der Leyen just arrived about an hour ago. The EU Commission President is preparing a combined support package for Ukraine worth up to 18 billion euros, with announcements on this expected during von der Leyen's visit. Now, we don't know all the details of what von der Leyen will be doing while in Kiev, but our correspondent Jorge Liborero was with her on the official train covering this visit, and he sent this report literally minutes ago.
This is the second time this year that Ursula von der Leyen travels to Kyiv, but the situation has drastically changed. Last time in February, the Commission President encountered a truly bleak landscape. Ukraine was going through a horrific winter of widespread blackouts caused by Russian attacks. The 90 billion support loan was blocked by Hungary, and Ukraine's accession process was completely paralyzed, with no solution in sight. But now, as von der Leyen says, the tide is turning in Ukraine's favor. The country is launching long-range strikes against Russian refineries, triggering a painful fuel crisis that is turning the heat on the war economy. The 90 billion loan is up and running, and the accession process is gaining traction. This week, Ukraine opened a new cluster of negotiations and intends to unblock the remaining 4 by the end of the year. We must admit that this is a remarkable turnaround for a country under invasion. This is the sort of encouraging message that von der Leyen will deliver today when she meets with President Volodymyr Zelensky here in Kyiv. The two leaders are expected to announce a brand new deal to build and store drones on European soil. These drones will then be used to either help Ukraine on the battlefield or reinforce the eastern flank. For Ukraine, the real benefit is the European industrial scale. And for Europeans, the benefit is Ukraine's technological ingenuity.
Jorge Liborero from Kiev, thank you very much. As the wars rage in Ukraine and in the Middle East, the battle for global food security is intensifying. Ukraine remains one of the world's key grain exporters, while tensions with Iran are driving up energy and fertilizer costs, threatening harvests far beyond the conflict zones. The ripple effects are being felt across the globe. To discuss this further, let's bring in Karl Skau, Executive Director of the World Food Programme, who joins me now in the studio. Good morning, Karl. Good morning. Great to have you here with us. Before we get to the global affairs, I want to talk about the people who really suffer in this war. You just came back from a trip to Ukraine. Tell us about what you saw. How are people struggling there?
I regularly visit the front line in Ukraine because we have operations from Odessa, Kherson in the south to Kharkiv in the north. We every day have deliveries on those front lines. I was there last in the beginning of March, where they have just come through a very tough winter. And I was there last week for a week, visiting all points of that front line. And frankly, the situation has gotten even worse because there are relentless attacks, drone attacks happening now. I was in Donetsk when they registered some 1,400 drone attacks in only 24 hours. And so the civilian population there is really terrorized, and what they call the killing zone has expanded from 15 kilometers from the active front line to some 50 kilometers, because that's the range that these drones are now attacking. And I met families who had left overnight their house. They had enough. Some had been encouraged by authorities to leave. And I met one family who had had their house destroyed overnight at one of these transit centers. So I think that it's important also to keep an eye on the human dimension of this war, as always, but particularly on those front lines that are being terribly hammered right now.
You mentioned your frontline operations. What exactly is it that you can do?
So we deliver to almost 700,000 people who are stuck on that front line every month. And so where there are no markets, it's food, it's packages with food. Where there are some functioning markets, it's cash. And in some places, it's a mix of both because the markets carry some products, but not everything you need to survive. But we're also supporting the children that are in these bunker schools on the front lines with school meals. It's a way of ensuring that they have at least one nutritious meal a day. It's also a way of making sure they come to the school, and we buy the food locally from farmers to help also the local farming community. And we are supporting farmers to get back on lands by surveying those lands so that they know what is contaminated by mines or other explosive ordnance, but that they can be back and farm on the others, which is important for food security in the area, but also for the resilience of those communities.
Let's switch to the Middle East for a minute. How does the war in Iran affect global food security?
Well, it's hit at many levels. I mean, the most immediate humanitarian impact has been, of course, in Lebanon, with hundreds of thousands of displaced people there. But at a second level, it has hit our humanitarian operations across the globe in two ways. One, the disruptions to supply chain that everyone, involved in moving stuff has felt. It takes 3 to 4 weeks longer to move rice from India to Somalia, for example, but also the costs. In the Sahel, for example, the price of doing business has gone up almost 30%, and we are already in a situation where the needs are outpacing the available resources by far. And of course, when our running costs go up, then less aid is delivered. The last and most serious impact is that it's driving up food security. So energy and food prices are very closely correlated. And in the poorest countries, people are now eating less, and food insecurity is on the increase.
All right, Karl Skau, Executive Director of the World Food Programme. Thank you so much for your insights this morning.
Thank you.
Now, just a few hours ago, the border controls in the fence between Spain and Gibraltar disappeared. Yesterday, the EU and the United Kingdom signed the Gibraltar Agreement, one of the last remaining post-Brexit leftover issues. After the meeting, Spanish Foreign Affairs Minister José Manuel Álvarez expressed the hope for a new chapter in the relations between Gibraltar and Campo de Gibraltar.
Basically, we have a guarantee that the way they were already living, because they were already relating, 50,000 people were crossing every day for work. People from Gibraltar had houses or were living also outside. There was always a trade relation. All that is protected, is increased. And now, instead of looking with distrust to the other side of the gate, there will be no more gate. You know that you have a neighbor with which you can cooperate.
Alvarez maintains that the claim of sovereignty of Spain does not change a bit with the agreement, but says it solves concrete problems of the citizens. Chief Minister of Gibraltar, Fabian Picardo, shares the same view.
You can look at the one page that contains the issue of sovereignty, or you can look at the 118 pages that contain all of the other issues that we agree on, all of the issues that we're going to work together on now going forward. Instead of living with our backs to each other, we're going to be getting bureaucracy out of the way of the citizen and making sure that where there was a fence, there is now fluidity.
The conflict over Gibraltar is one of the oldest in Europe. Another one is the one over Cyprus. Since 1974, the island state in the eastern Mediterranean has been divided between the internationally recognized Republic of Cyprus, an EU member state, and the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, which is recognized only by Turkey. Diplomatic attempts at reuniting the island have been plenty, but nothing came out of it. Now there are new negotiations on the agenda already overshadowed by the Northern Cypriot rejection of a new EU special representative for Cyprus. To make sense of all this, I'm glad to have Marilena Rauna by my side now, the Deputy EU Affairs Minister of Cyprus. Thanks for coming on the show today.
A pleasure, Stefan. Good morning. Good to be here.
Yeah, good morning. Well, first of all, what do you make of this rejection by the Turkish Cypriot side of the new EU special representative?
Well, let us start by saying the following. When Cyprus acceded to the European Union in 2004, Stefan, it acceded in the entirety of its territory. It does not exercise effective control in the occupied areas, where Turkey occupies 37% of the territory, but it is European territory. So that as a starting point. There is now a renewed effort by the Secretary General of the UN to resume negotiations on the Cyprus question, in line always with the UN Security Council resolutions. Now, the European Union has a very important role to play in this effort, in supporting the efforts of the UN Secretary General. Why? Because the Cyprus question is a European question, and reunifying the last divided member state of the European Union will not only be transformative for Cyprus, it will also be transformative for the region of the Eastern Mediterranean, sending a resounding message for peace and stability when we desperately need it. In the context of this, President von der Leyen appointed Vice President Fido as special representative. This follows the appointment, if you remember, of Mr. Johannes Hahn, who had this role. Let us say that this is not the first time that we have an EU personality. It is, though, the first time that we have a political personality. Yeah. And the aim there is to support the efforts. It is not to take sides, but it is very much to support reunification, and everyone stands to benefit from that. All Cypriots and, of course, EU-Turkey relations.
Marina, I got to ask you this. The island has been divided for more than 50 years. There have been talks that didn't lead to anything. Why should anybody believe that this time will be different?
Because conditions are different right now. The geopolitical environment is different. We have a new President Christodoulidis assumed office 3 years ago. He made it a priority to re-energize the efforts. And I think that is the reason why we have these developments and the efforts of the Secretary General for a new effort. And then another important dimension, Stefan, is EU-Turkey relations. Turkey wishes to come closer to the European Union. Cyprus is the first member state that would like to see a positive agenda between the EU and Turkey. Why? Because we cannot change geography. Turkey will always be our neighbor, and we want to have good neighborly relations. There is
quick one, Maria, a quick one.
It would also benefit EU-Turkey relations at a time when Turkey wants it, the EU wants it.
We have 30 seconds left. Do you still believe in reunification, or has it become just a political slogan?
We absolutely believe in reunification. We prove it. President Christodoulidis proves it in action. We cannot accept that there is a European member state that is still divided and under occupation. And the EU is there to support these efforts. We will be doing our utmost to reunify Cyprus.
All right, Marilena Rauna, Deputy European Affairs Minister of Cyprus, thank you for breaking it all down for us.
Thank you so much.
And now, our World Cup minutes. What a night in Dallas. Spain spoiled the Bastille Day party and beat France, the big favorite of the tournament, 2-0 with goals from Mikel Oyarzabal and Pedro Porro, and is now in scoring distance to glory. A performance the team of Luis de la Fuente delivered with deadly effectiveness against Les Bleus, who were surprisingly confused. The final whistle sparked celebrations among the thousands of Spain fans who had traveled to Texas and among millions of people in Spanish cities. La Roja are back in a World Cup final and keep alive their dream of winning the second World Cup in their history after 2010. On Sunday, they will aim to be crowned world champions against the winners of the other semi-final between England and Argentina in Atlanta tonight. Kickoff is 9 p.m. Central European Summertime. That does it for us today. Tune in again tomorrow. I'm Stefan Grobe. Take care and goodbye.